I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much. I'm Kelley from Styring Vineyards, and welcome to our first ever Club Zoom. We created this Zoom because unfortunately in 2020, we can't have a club pickup event where we can treat you to some fabulous food and fun wines. Many of you have been by to pick up your club, and some of you came by on Halloween weekend when we were able to pour for you at least a glass of our new 2016 Estate Pinot Noir. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that wine tonight because that's part of the collection that you're picking up. So we're super pleased with how the club has grown over time, and with your support, it'll continue to grow. It is one of the things that helps us share some special things with people who are really tuned into what we're trying to do. And so sometimes you get exclusive wines that no one else gets. Sometimes you get previews, which is what's happening in this case. And in this case, you're getting a library and a preview because it's a vertical. So in putting this collection together, we thought that the estate line was the right line to use because we had really great examples of what 14, 15, and 16 were about as vintage years. And we wanted to release the 16 estate to the club as a preview, something special that no one else would have. Yes, you have. You didn't have to get dressed. Steve Reese wants to know if you needed to get dressed. Only if I ask you to turn on your camera. I think I can ask you to talk. I'm not sure I can ask you to turn on your camera. But quite frankly, Steve, you can wear whatever you want. So what we noticed, well, let me back up first and talk about estate as a principle, and then I'll talk about the particular vertical that's in this club. So whenever we create Pinot Noir, we create 2 to 3 every year. So every year we know we're going to have a signature Pinot Noir. That's really our mainstay of the farm, and it's a perfect reflection of the Ribbon Ridge terroir. Then we seek out to see if there's any difference in taste at the barrel level to create estate, which is a step up from that. It's a little bit more opulent, it's a little bit more bold usually, and it has more aging to it. So we won't release them at the same time. It's going to age a little bit longer. Signature is always released first. We released our signature 16, I believe it was Memorial Day this year. And so every so often we'll have a couple barrels that we think are super special, and that becomes Wit Reserve, but it's not every year. And so we've been pretty fortunate the past 5 or 6 years. We've had a couple of barrels that we could designate as Wit, but it doesn't always happen. In fact, we had one vintage, I don't remember what year it was, but everything was estate. We didn't even feel like we had a signature level. So everything was estate that year. So with that in mind, now we've talked about kind of what estate is. Now I'd like to talk about this particular collection. And I'm going to use a few notes because it's a little bit complex. So we, the 2014 to 15 to 16 progression was very weather dependent. And so what we noticed was that in 14, we had late rain and some cooler temperatures that allowed us to hang longer. And our preference is always to hang longer for the Pinots so that we get the rich, full flavors and the full color from the skins as well. So we have a bias toward hanging late, but we can't ignore the ripeness. And we certainly don't want things to be overly ripe. So we have to be respectful of the weather. And so in 14, we ended up with this kind of deep, black, I think of it as black cherry. It's like deep and dark, and it has a kind of caramel back note from some of the wood aging. And so what that means is that 14 is going to be very well paired with hardier foods. So with Pinot Noir, we always recommend that you go towards something on the dusky side that's either game or meat that's kind of gamey, so to speak. And so in this case, we were recommending lamb and mushroom meatballs. Some of you might remember that we served those at the very first ever club pickup party that we hosted right after the tasting room opened in, I believe it was October of last year, 2019. So they were lamb and mushroom meatballs, and they were drizzled with a red wine reduction. And I made the sauce, I reduced the red wine. I think it was Pinot Noir, but I noticed that it didn't matter which wine I picked. If I reduced it enough, they all start to taste the same. So, but I thickened it with pureed shallots, and I used ground white pepper as a little pick-me-up to give it a little punch at the end. So that's what we would recommend that you serve with that, because it's so deep. It's such a deep, dark black cherry expression. When we move, and then I've actually poured some, so I think I'm just going to drink it while I'm talking. This is the 2014. And so you do notice the full black cherry, you do notice the caramel, and you'll pick up a little bit of that in the nose as well. Oh boy. It has a really nice soft lingering finish too. I think I'm going to take this one home with me tonight when we're done here. So then the next level up and there's one bottle of that in the 4-bottle pickup club, and I believe there's 3 bottles of that in the case club. And that's for pickup. This is a webinar geared toward the pickup crowd tonight. So if you haven't picked up, I'll tell you when you can do that. So the next level up is the 2015. Now 2015 was an amazing year for us. It was the second year that we scored all 90s on our 90s and high 90s on our Pinot Noir, hitting 96 with Wit Reserve, 94 with the bottle that's in this vertical collection. And I believe it was a 93 on the signature. And so we have done that in 2012, 2015, and then we did it again in 2016. All of those wines are in the 90s. So we're excited about the 16s as well. So instead of being like a deep black cherry, it's more like a blackberry. And that's because the fruit didn't hang as long. So it's a little higher in acid. The weather was a little bit warmer. It was temperamental, earlier. And so we decided to bring the fruit in. It has plenty of richness. It's got a lot of fullness in the mouth. This one actually has a little bit of that caramel, but it also has some chocolate notes as well. It's a super dark, let me see if I can hold that up. It's got that nice like purpley kind of color. So I can't help it. The one word that the press used that Steve agreed with in this wine, and he doesn't always agree with what they say, but the one thing that he said that he agreed with more than anything was harmonious, in that the richness of the fruit and the chocolate and caramel highlights were very harmonious and balanced. And so he felt like that was really coming through in this wine and made it very enjoyable. So because it's in that blackberry kind of zone, we were recommending pork chops with this. So even though that's not a very gamey meat, it's also not necessarily sweet if you season it correctly. So we like to grill pork chops. We particularly like French cut pork chops from Trader Joe's if you could get them, but any pork chop will do. And we rub that with dry basil, garlic, salt, and pepper, and then just grill it. And when I say we, I mean Steve, because he's an excellent grill master and an excellent cook just overall. So that's how we think about the 2015 estate. And then finally, the 2016. This one has the highest acid. It has a little less ripeness in it, so it's got brighter flavors. So it's really a red berry or a red cherry. So if you think about the progression from black cherry to blackberry to red cherry, that's how you can think about these 3 wines. They really progress like little soldiers across that spectrum. It has, the press said that it had a focus to it, which I thought was pretty interesting. And they also recommended ample aeration. And let me talk about aeration. I don't know that I like aerators per se that kind of bubble the wine around. That feels kind of like the antithesis of all the gentle handling that we do in the winery, but I do like decanting. So I really enjoy just pouring off a glass or 2 into if you don't have a proper decanter, I use a 2-cup measure, just pour off a little of it. Any Oregon Pinot Noir, I think, benefits greatly from some air. And so just let it breathe for an hour if you can. You might have to drink a glass in the meantime. You might pour that off into your glass instead of into 2-cup measure, and that's okay too. So again, the higher acidity in this wine, the press also noted that that you could really start to taste the maturity of the vines, which is interesting because we don't separate our wine by block, but they might be separating themselves by taste. We just don't know because we don't keep track of what block goes into what barrel. We just taste the barrels and make every decision based on taste, because we think that's what matters, how it tastes in your mouth. And so the 16, because it's a little higher in acid, we still recommend something dusky to go with it, but maybe lighter in flavor, like I like a mushroom quiche, like a nice, like kind of saute some mushrooms and maybe even some chives and make a quiche. But then I like to drizzle truffle oil around the crust just so it is a little more dense in flavor, because Pinot Noir really benefits from pairing with some dense flavors as well. And I like to do that when the crust is hot so I can sprinkle a little salt on it too. It's quite decadent. So that's the vertical collection that is in the club. We're super excited to share it with you. We think it has a fun and interesting story. We think it relates to the terroir and the weather and the other conditions. The 2016, again, is a preview. It's not something that is readily available right now. We're previewing it to our club. And in your 4-bottle collection, you have 2 bottles of that. So one for you and one for sharing, if you like, with the holidays coming up. And if you're in our case club, there are 6 of those. There are 3 14s, 3 15s, and 6 2016s in there. Other things that you should know about what's going on at the vineyard. We made a decision back in the summer to not process our 2020 fruit. And we made that decision based on COVID conditions and our inability to imagine how to do it safely. Those of you who've come out in the summer and tasted with us, you know that we put a great deal of care and attention into how we were going to serve you outdoors safely in the summer for your benefit and ours, so that you could come out and enjoy our farm, but everyone could be safe and healthy together. We run our lives and our businesses based on strong principles, and this is in keeping with our principles. So in keeping with our principles and being a small farm, we just couldn't imagine how we could keep ourselves, our temporary workers that help us during harvest, and our friends and volunteers that are a really critical part of harvest. How could we keep everybody safe during the tasks that need to be done in a short period of time in close quarters, often indoors? And so we decided to sell our 2020 Pinot Noir fruit. At some point in the future, we'll divulge who we sold it to. We are making Riesling. We make Riesling off-site, and we feel like the conditions at a bigger winery are more safe and more conducive to our safety and the safety of others. So that's a decision that we made. And then that also is in keeping with how the tasting room is not open. So the tasting room closed March 15th of last year and will remain closed and for the foreseeable future until things get better. And I think given the science, we will all know when the right time is. I don't know if you've been following the news today, but the governor has closed all tasting rooms anyway. So I guess we made a choice that was in line with what was ultimately going to occur to everyone else, that was the right way to stay safe. However, as soon as the weather gets nice, you'll hear from us about when you can come out and taste. In the meantime, though, for the month of November, the drive-thru is open every Saturday, 12 to 4, and also on Black Friday. So Thanksgiving, we'll do like Friday, Saturday, but again, there won't be any tasting. But we're happy to greet you and shout a hearty cheers and deliver any wine to your trunk that you think you'll need for holiday. You, of course, as club members, get 20% off of all purchases that you pick up. I also finally, in closing, wanted to make you aware that we are doing some shipping offers right now. So we have quite a few customers out of state, and they often ship for the holidays at this time. So we are offering a case deal, any case that you want to buy, any mixed case, with the exception of Whimsy. So Whimsy is a little too low priced to offer this deal, but we can certainly make it as attractive as we can. But all of our other SKUs, you can mix and match those at the $5 off price, which you know you can already get if you buy 3 or more bottles. But we'll also give you complimentary shipping anywhere in the continental US, and that where we legally can. And that's through the end of November, just so you can get ahead of the holidays. If you want to ship a case to someone, just let us know. And so that's everything that I wanted to share tonight. I don't see any questions. I want to thank you for all of your kind words that you're putting out there in support of the decisions that we're making. Some of them are hard decisions. We'd like nothing more than to be in our barn with our friends and family making wine right now. But you know, these are the sacrifices we can all make short term to get to have a healthier, happier future in the long term. So unless there are any other questions, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say bye-bye. Bye-bye. And I'm going to go drink a good bit of that wine tonight. And I look forward to seeing any of you that want to cruise through the drive-through the next few weekends. And let me know if there's a case that you want to send somewhere. Thank you so much. Good night.